Josh, and then Eric and Bellman.
Got it. Got it. Yo, good evening. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Live Before Lock, Minnesota Vikings, LA Rams. Yeah, if you were looking for a slate that actually had a lot of studs in it, well, you got one today, and Puka Nacua activated after getting 2 limited practices in it following them opening the 21-day practice window. So, look, honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe not quite as good, but it probably is. Like, Greg's with me as always. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Laffy.
He's got 2 limited practices, and the guy hasn't played. Like, I know he's been rehabbing, but he hasn't played since week 1 against Detroit. It really does make you wonder. I don't think McVay pulls the same type of shenanigans like you saw with Whittington, but, you know, with Whittington being a rookie and everything, I mean, how confident can you be in Puka Nacua right now? He's got a 29.5-yard receiving prop.
I mean, you can't be confident at all. I mean, I don't even know how books go about setting the prop lines for a Nacua situation. I think what happened probably was like Pinnacle set a line first, and other books are like, we'll just copy that one because what the hell else do you do with it?
I thought they would. They don't even have one. So someone, to your point, someone set one, but I don't know who, because DraftKings and FanDuel are at 29.5 and 28.5. ESPN's at 29.5. Nobody else has anything from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and like, who knows? Here's what's going to happen most likely. It's very unlikely to me that he's going to finish like right around 30 receiving yards. You're going to look at that prop after the game. You'd be like, oh, of course, he was just active and didn't play snaps, and it was a stupid line. Or he's going to play a full role. He goes out and has like 100+ receiving yards. You'd be like, oh, of course, he hasn't played in a while. They're not in contention. Of course, they waited until he was fully healthy to go ahead and activate him. So it's going to seem really obvious in hindsight. But as we sit here now, like, how the hell do you have any kind of confidence in what's going to happen with Puka Nacua tonight?
I don't. You know what I did? I parlayed his under and Cooper Kupp's over. So at least, you know what I mean? Because I don't just want to straight bet his under or his over. Like, what does that really do me? We're all taking guesses here. But like, if you were to take his over and Cooper Kupp's over, you're getting much shorter odds than if you take his under and his over, because the way that these are correlated is actually like the offense as a whole. So you know what I'm saying? It's not as like, there's correlation between him and Kupp, obviously, but both of those overs, you're going to get paid less. So I went with his under and Cooper Kupp's over, because if Puka Nacua goes under the 29.5, you have a pretty good shot that Cooper Kupp's going to see a ton of work today. Yeah.
And I mean, the other angle to this too is, what are the ladder numbers for Nacua? Are books even offering them?
I didn't see them, but they might be now. And you're right. If there were one other bet, you should, yeah. It's either the under parlayed with another over. For me, it's Cooper Kupp. Or because you're not laddering an under on 29.5 doesn't do much for you, because I think the books are going to be pretty wise to that. Like, they're not going to give you that. But he is all right. So you want 80+, he's at 10-1.
Pretty enticing. I'm looking at his receptions prop on FanDuel, 7-1 for 6+ receptions.
I mean, yeah, it really, as we said this, it just dropped to not plus 950 from 10-1, but yeah, you're going one direction or the other. If you want to ladder it, it's out there for some big payouts. You're going to do it? You're going to take a shot?
I'm thinking about it.
All right. Well, let's talk a little DFS and we'll discuss it along the way. Yeah, happy to have you guys with us as always. If you don't mind, take a second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way. It helps us feed the algorithm. If you thought or think somewhere along the way we helped you guys out, maybe gave you some information that helped you win some GPPs. Maybe it's even the tools over at Stokastic. Likely is. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, show us some love, and follow Greg at G Ehrenberg DFS, me at Laffy_D on X. All right, man, let's make it happen. So I did want to start off. Were you going to say something?
No, you go ahead.
I did want to start off with the Puka Nacua thing just because it's a big deal. But I'm also not convinced it's a huge deal because his price point isn't exactly cheap either. Like you're not getting discounted injury Puka Nacua where we've seen it before. Like no one expects him to come off the IR and he does. Oh wow, he's $5,000 a captain. That's different. He's essentially the same price in the same neighborhood as Jefferson, Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold. He's more expensive than Jones, Darnold, and Stafford. So to me, I personally I don't think I'm going to be taking shots on Nacua at that price point today. That's why I talked to you about the betting market first, because I think it's a lot more exploitable. It's just, it's a lot more like I just win or I lose with Puka Nacua in the betting world. With this, it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's way different because you need so much more to go right for you to go play Puka Nacua at his price point and for it to work out. I mean, you could even have, just because there are studs in this game, even just the wide receiver position, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, you could realistically get all of those alt overs to hit for Puka Nacua that we just talked about. 7-1 for 6+ receptions, plus 950 now you said for 80+
he's still not optimal.
Yards. He could have 7 catches for 90 yards, and Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp both outscore him, and then he's not in the optimal lineup anyway. So there's so much risk with Puka Nacua, and also the chance that he just flat out doesn't end up playing, where we saw, like, what was Jordan Whittington? What did Jordan Whittington play? 3 snaps last week or something?
9.
Which also is weird. I didn't understand that either, because it's like, why is he so hurt that he could play 9 snaps? But like, why even have him active at all at that point? So whatever. I didn't understand the Jordan Whittington thing either, but it also, you brought that up at the top for good reason, because we already saw them do a batshit crazy nonsensical thing with a much less important player in Jordan Whittington. Like, what are they going to do with Puka Nacua? There's really wide range of outcomes here, and I don't feel all that comfortable playing him in DFS. And in GPPs, if you want to take a shot on him, fine, but I don't want to build my lineups around him.
Right. And it's binary in betting. You win it or you lose it. In DFS, like you said, he could still not be optimal with like 18 fantasy points. By the way, thank you to everybody in chat keeping us honest here. He's 5K on FanDuel.
Fair. Yeah. So the FanDuel situation is completely different with him being 5K. When he's the min price, then you're looking at a totally different scenario for salary savings. But on DraftKings, at least, like I find it hard to consider him on DK. FanDuel, still not like my favorite play on FanDuel or anything like that, but he's clearly amongst the other options you have at 5K, he's way better than the other ones.
Definitely. And that's what I'm talking about with FanDuel, when you price these guys in the basement and don't expect them back. That's exactly what happened here. So yeah. But with Cooper Kupp too, this is another thing where, man, you look at this matchup, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds with you. Some people just don't care about that. Some like it. But like when you talk man and zone coverage, Matt was saying the other day, like he's not smart enough to figure that out. And if he's not, I certainly am not. But when a team plays zone at like such an alarmingly high rate, like the Minnesota Vikings do, 3rd highest in the league, and Cooper Kupp has dominated zone coverage, I mean, throughout the entirety of his career. Also, they blitz at the highest rate in his league. Nobody is a better target for Matthew Stafford, on blitzes than Cooper Kupp. Like this does, and he got full practices in, even Monday when they don't practice, and you know how they release those stupid estimated practice reports. Even then, he was considered a full participant. So I expect the governor to be off for Kupp. Like I would anticipate him getting a full allotment of work. I do like him today, and I know our projections don't have him looking as good now that Puka Nacua is active. I might boost him a little bit here, just because if you get one of these patented Cooper Kupp games, it could be a game changer. But at the same time, you don't have to go to Cooper Kupp. You still have Kyren, you still have Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Darnold, Stafford. There's still a lot of other great options up top. So I don't think you need to go crazy with Cooper Kupp either. I just want to have enough of him today.
Is there anything dumber than we didn't practice today, but this is what would have happened if we practiced?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've never understood why the NFL does it. No other league. And also, the actual injury reports, they don't even get fucking right anyway. But like, so they've fake, like they're going to lie on the real injury reports, but they're going to make fake injury reports they're going to be accurate on. I don't get the point of it.
It's insane. How you feeling today? I'm okay. All right. You're limited. How you feeling? Great, coach. You're full. You know, like, doesn't make sense, but whatever. It is what it is. Ultimately, all I'm saying here is that Cooper Kupp is still a strong play, in my opinion. I don't know where you have him today, but when this guy's healthy, he's fantastic. Now, if you're of the opinion that Puka Nacua is going to come back and be utilized heavily, then I have very different opinion on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and you just load up on Jefferson, Williams, and Jones.
Yeah, by the way, one other thing also about Puka Nacua, and I feel the same as you. I like Cooper Kupp as a pay up option. Clearly, though, I think, well, maybe not clearly, because maybe other people feel differently, but at least clear to me, Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver I want to spend up for if I'm just picking one guy that I could spend up for on the slate. One other thing that I wanted to add about Puka Nacua, because it's just an angle I thought of that I hadn't really thought of before, is if he's just available as like an emergency wide receiver, there's another scenario here going back to the betting market. If you bet Puka Nacua's unders and he just doesn't play a snap, it voids anyway. So that's another angle where there's an advantageous side of betting overs for Puka Nacua that wouldn't apply to DFS. He's scoring 0 fantasy points in DFS no matter what. There's a scenario where he doesn't play at all and the bets get voided.
For sure. And they're not going to put him on special teams. You wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, he's not going to be on special teams.
No, certainly not. Like, so I'm saying some of the scrubs are, and they play a couple special team snaps, and you actually end up winning the bet if you bet the under there, even if they don't get any offensive snaps. But yeah, this is. If you had to project how many snaps he gets,
just got a report.
What?
According to Ian Rappaport, Puka Nacua won't see full complement of snaps on Thursday.
Okay. Now,
more or less with that said, that does give me some level of confidence he's at least going to be on the field.
I'm definitely confident he's going to get some work. I don't know. Here's what I'm saying. What would be the point of activating him, Greg? What would be the point of activating a guy after 2 days of practice to not use him at all? I think they're going to use him. I just don't think he's viable for DFS at all.
Yeah. With FanDuel being a different scenario than DraftKings, that caveat again. But yeah, totally agreed with the pay up on DraftKings. I'm not interested in going there. But yeah, it does seem like, to what you said before, now that we got this report that it seems like there's a plan in place, and it's for him to be, I don't know, maybe I'd say 50% of his normal workload.
Yeah. I mean, look, Puka's going for 300 now, but no, I don't know. He might have a great game. I mean, you wouldn't be laddering the overs after that, getting that news, right? Or would you?
No, I still would, just because the odds are so long, and there's still a scenario where, let's see if nothing's moved in the lines here. But there's also a scenario kind of like one that you and I talked about last week with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had very similar prop lines last week, and if you laddered the overs, he finished like 66 yards. He was like 5-1 to have 60 or more yards. Like, it's not that hard for guys who are this talented to catch 4 passes and end up coming away with like 60 plus yards. 60 plus yards for Puka Nacua. It is, plus 370. Not the greatest line there. By the way, now the lines are actually starting to come down now.
To come down?
Yeah. The odds are getting shorter now.
Really? Why?
Maybe just a little bit more confidence that he's actually going to have a role in the offense now.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Caesars has a line out too. It's there. It's the same line as DraftKings. BetMGM has one now. It's the same line. So they're all 28, 29 and a half. I don't know. Anyway.
By the way, by coming down, I meant the alt lines are getting shorter.
Yeah, you're saying that your payout is less for
yeah. So
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I realized it might have not been clear, but yeah, some of the numbers on like the 70 plus receiving yards and the 60 plus, like they've come down pretty significantly versus where they were before the Rappaport report.
We had a question too from Jerkwad? Jerkwode? I don't know. Who is the best sneaky captain on DraftKings to free up salary for studs?
Ooh.
I'll tell you what, man. There is not much that I like if you're going to the sneaky cheap captain. If you're doing that, number one, how duped are you going to be? My guess is extremely. But there's nobody that I have a ton of confidence in that is cheap. And oftentimes I'm fine with getting to some of those cheap guys. Like I have some Johnny Mund captain. That's my highest owned cheap captain. And that's not going to inspire confidence in anybody.
Johnny Mund, if people are asking who's the one guy, Mund makes the most sense. TJ Hawkinson, not going to be playing today. And, not that Mund is like prolific, very far from it, but he's cheap and we know he's going to be running routes. We know he's going to be on the field. I do have a couple of really contrarian Josh Oliver lineups, but once again, that's solely, I think, because running everything through the Sims and him being literally in like no lineups in the captain spot. He shows up in a couple. But yeah, like the pick that I'd give to you guys is the one it is Johnny Mund.
By the way, have you guys used the new entry manager on the Sims tool? Dude, this thing makes life so. Josh made the greatest point on the strategy show for basketball the other day. He's like, it's not going to make you win more. It's going to make your life easier. And it's going to remove so much stress. Like that stress that comes with trying to copy and paste everything in and get it over and upload it, like for basketball, even sometimes for football, for me, doing shows and then, coming up against the wire, that type of stuff. The fact that I can just click a plus button and add all of those lineups that I have into that contest and then go back into it after my next run and put them back in there. God, that is absolutely a lifesaver, man. I'm so happy we have this.
It's convenient, especially it's still going to help for football. It's going to make our lives a little bit easier, but especially for basketball where we are pressed for time more often. This isn't going to apply to anybody in our audience. It really helps if you're doing shows and sometimes I'll misclick something when I'm copy pasting. Then I upload a CSV and be like, how come this is what my lineups were? And then I realize I fucked up my CSV. So yeah, that is certainly going to make it easier for me on shows. And then for NBA, when we're always pressed for time, anytime you could save a minute to 3 minutes, it's going to be valuable for basketball.
Yeah. And if you guys, if you said it a lot, but if you're someone that doesn't get to tune into all of our shows, if you look in the description down there, see that first thing that says join any sportsbook, gets the Stokastic Sims free. That is exactly what it is. It's exactly what it means. And it's not just a week of like the essentials package. It's a month of the core package, $1,000 value. Dave Duran. Yeah, we can help you on that. But look, check this out. See all of those up there? Bet365. Like tonight, Bet365. Deposit 10, bet 5, get $200 in bonus bets if you're in any of those states. Not only that, fit $10 in bonus bets per every touchdown scored tonight. When you bet a $50 same game parlay, 3+ legs, even money, or just cumulative $50. But you're already getting 200 in bonus bets on your first bet. Caesars, huge first bet protection on that. Same with BetMGM. FanDuel, I think it's like 300 in bonus bets now or 200 in bonus bets if you're not there yet. And if you're in any of these non-legal betting states, DraftKings, pick 6, $100 deposit bonus, 100% deposit bonus. And we have all of the tools for that are included in this as well, like the Pick'em Optimizer, Underdog Prize Picks, you name it, everything right in here. All you do, click that link, click claim offer, deposit, place the bet, and the moment that bet settles, all right, like literally you can bet on something live tonight in game, and that could settle. Take a screenshot of the settled bet and your welcome email and email it to us at support@Stokastic, and you get a free month, $100 value, any sport you want. The best part, Greg, is you can stack them. So you want basketball and football. Say you want 2 months of each. You want to carry yourself through the rest of 2024. You sign up on 4 of these books, follow the steps, and you got $400 worth of tools that are going to make your life easier and your lineups a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, we've got, 4 months left of football season, November, December, January, February. So if you were to sign up for 4 of these books right now, you get the football tools for the entire year.
Damn right, man. Just follow the steps, claim offer, follow those steps up there through that link. Samuel Romero said, I hit on Sleeper and got my month free. That's what I'm talking about, dude. It's not just a month. Someone else, I think it was Brandon Wagner, tweeted me the other day. he put 25 down on, was it better, Greg? It was 125, turned it into 1250 on his first bet and got the free month. So we're seeing people like win their bets, win their plays, and also get the free months and then go win in the DFS street. So I'm very happy about that. Anyway, got to be 21 years old to gamble. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But we'd love to see you over there. And everyone gets the Discord as well. So jump in the Discord. Greg answers questions in there 5 days a week, like sets aside time to help you guys with anything. Sims, single lineup sim, ownership, boom bust, top stack, any of those tools you're trying to figure out. Post lineup, post lock, even the late swap tool, you got them. And I know you do. All right. Goody, thank you for the super chat. He said entry manager is straightforward fire. It is, dude. It's super helpful, especially for me making lineups on this show right now. We had another super chat from earlier. Let me pull this one up. I lost it. Oh, there we go. What's up, Devon Maya? I have Puka on my year-long and am keeping him benched today. Yeah, assuming you have a decent team, I would too. That boy from Cali, Greg, here's a good question. And the projections, Greg can talk. How much do props do you use to determine your lineups?
Indirectly,
yeah,
a decent amount. Like, it's not something that I am really thinking about consciously when I am making my lineups, but our projections don't like our projections. We always look at the prop markets when we're making our projection just for an idea, because if we had, let's say there's all this uncertainty with Puka Nacua. If all the sports books had his prop at, like we said before, 28.5, 29.5 yards, but then we did our projections and we had Puka Nacua projected for 100 receiving yards, we would look at those prop markets and be like, we might be a little bit off here. We shouldn't be this far away from the prop market. So I'm not looking at the props, mean like this is what determines my lineups, but we do use it as like a check against our projections to make sure things aren't like totally insanely out of line. So like it plays a little role. It's just not a conscious one.
Correct. But they are all baked into the projections for sure. To in some capacity. All right. How about Aaron Jones today? I'm getting a lot of him at captain. He's cheaper than a lot of these guys, but I'll tell you what, Greg, when this guy's healthy, and I'm not really concerned about the short week, when he's healthy, he's just getting a ton of work. Outside of that Jets game where he got hurt early in London, he's been getting, just a ton of work. People had a lot of concerns about Ty Chandler potentially coming in and eating into this workload. Like, yeah, sure, Ty Chandler's getting some, but tell you what, Aaron Jones is getting more work than he did with Green Bay. And we've seen that 82% of snaps in week 4, 22 in week 5, he got hurt. Bye week in week 6, 72% in week 7. That's a lot.
Yeah. He's been, crazy involved with the Minnesota Vikings. And the key for Aaron Jones too, which was not always the case for him when he was in Green Bay, he's been healthy so far this year. And it's been a year where a lot of running backs, as per usual, have been getting banged up, but he's been super efficient this year. The only thing you haven't gotten a lot of out of Aaron Jones is touchdowns. He's only rushed for 2 touchdowns so far this year, which maybe a little bit surprising considering the Vikings offense has been as good as it's been. But yeah, you've got Aaron Jones, who has 5 or more targets in half of their games this year. You're getting also a healthy dose of rushing attempts. And a lot of these games too that we've seen from the Vikings haven't even been particularly competitive. Like you look at the first couple of games, or 2 of the first 3 games of the year, they beat the Giants 28-6. So not really a need to play Aaron Jones a ton in that game. And then week 3 against the Houston Texans, they won 34-7. There wasn't a need to play Aaron Jones a lot, but still he did get 19 carries and 5 receptions in that game. So I don't even know that we've seen the most ideal game script for Aaron Jones. I guess the one that would have been ideal would have been the one against the Jets, but he got banged up, left that game early, ended up playing the next game after the bye week. But we haven't seen the game where it's like the Vikings win, which I think this is probably the optimal game script for this. Like the Vikings win like 24-17 and Aaron Jones gets like 25 plus carries. Like this sets up as a potential game script for that.
I agree. Also, you know what else is nice? Thanks, Chris, for gifting those memberships as always. He really is kind of game script proof. Because if they're behind, Ty Chandler's not your pass catching back. So yeah, I'm gonna have a lot.
And I think this really shows their limited amount of confidence in Ty Chandler. when the Vikings went and traded for Cam Akers, remember last week, you and I we were doing the single lineup sim show on Wednesday, and people were all up in arms that Aaron Jones was projecting well. We were putting Aaron Jones into a bunch of lineups. And Aaron Jones ended up having a great game. But what people had said was that the Vikings traded for Cam Akers, and that was going to cut into Aaron Jones's role. To me, them trading for Cam Akers was more along the lines of, we don't feel all that comfortable with Ty Chandler, not about Aaron Jones.
Exactly. No, you're right. That's pretty much what it boils down to. How are you approaching Kyren today?
Yeah, so I've got my lineups finished here, so I can go ahead and just look at what my exposures are. So Kyren Williams is actually, I'm getting more of the running backs than I am of the pass catchers. Aaron Jones is my favorite overall pay-up option of the skill position players, but I am getting to Kyren Williams a little bit more than I'm getting to Justin Jefferson. I think that's twofold. Number one, Kyren Williams is quite a bit less expensive, $600 less. In addition to that, he's also less popular. We do have Justin Jefferson for sure with a higher projection overall. But Kyren Williams, I think those $600 in salary savings are pretty important for this slate. I don't know about you, Lofty, but there's a couple of cheap options that I think are okay. But the biggest issue here is that if you were looking at this game a few days ago, you'd have said the spot for value is the cheap Rams wide receivers. But Puka Nacua being back, the biggest impact he has is guys like Tutu Atwell, Colby Parkinson. They don't look nearly as good as they would have otherwise. So getting back to the Kyren Williams question you had asked me, the reason he shows up in lineups more than like Justin Jefferson and the skill position players I have the most exposure to on the high end, it's Kyren Williams, number 2 behind Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson's 3, and then Cooper Kupp is coming in 4th for me there. It's because those $600 salary savings really matter on a slate that doesn't have very much value because Nacua is back.
Yeah, so Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Johnson. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't see more than just a few snaps in this game. What I would expect to see is that, okay, Demarcus Robinson and Cooper Kupp get a lot. Tutu Atwell and, Puka Nacua get work. Tyler Johnson doesn't get anything. Like, that's the way I kind of see it in this game. Especially if Puka Nacua is not expected to get a full workload. Like, if Nacua was out, it would have been Robinson, Atwell, and Kupp. Those guys would have gotten essentially all of the snaps. Maybe 10% snaps to somebody like Tyler Johnson. How do you see it playing out now?
Man, it's so hard to say just because it's the same before. We were talking about we don't know what Puka Nacua's role is going to be. And as a trickle-down effect to what everybody else's role is going to be on the team as well, like Cooper Kupp's usage, how many snaps Tutu Atwell plays, how many targets Colby Parkinson gets.
It's tough.
Here's the way I think I most want to play guys like Colby Parkinson and Tutu Atwell. Neither of them are massively popular, both like just over 20% owned. And then also Demarcus Robinson, you also added into that mix. I just align myself with the field. I'll play about 20% of all these guys. If you're playing like 20 lineups, include each of them in, say, 4 of them. And then you don't have to have this situation with how much Puka Nacua plays make or break you. It's just, you just kind of align yourself with the field on these cheapish pass catchers for the Rams. I don't want to prioritize any of them, but I don't want to fade them. And then Puka Nacua ends up playing 10 snaps and one of these guys is like, 7 for 70 and you need them.
I think I'd almost rather just get to like Parkinson or something at this point. And I'm seeing a decent amount of that. Are you willing to full out punt on this slate? Like, are there any guys that you're willing to say, you know what? All right, ugly slate. I'm just going to straight full out punt this.
I don't have anybody in more than 10% of lineups that's sub 2K. I've got a couple of Josh Oliver lineups. I've got some Davis Allen, CJ Ham, Hunter Long. If I was playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, I wouldn't be playing any of these guys, though. Really what I'd prefer to be doing with my lineups here is you go to one of the secondary options as far as, like, I find it very hard to get to Kyren Williams and Justin Jefferson in the multiplier spot because they're so expensive with the lack of value. I'd rather go to, say, like, either Aaron Jones in the multiplier spot, or you go to guys like the quarterbacks who aren't all that expensive, or like Jordan Addison, and then build a little bit more balanced lineups. I prefer that as a lineup construction than just punting and going really cheap because I don't feel great about any of those guys.
I don't either. And honestly, it's kind of tough to get to even a Jordan Addison today. I'm not saying it's impossible, but when you look at his price point, this whole mid-range of guys, like Addison, I'm not saying he's overpriced, but him and Naylor, they're still, these guys are really, really like tertiary options, not even really like secondary options, you know? What, and Addison's good. I think he's a decent enough pass catcher, but once you get past Jefferson and Aaron Jones, it's really just totally spread out. You know, you want to look at target shares this year for Minnesota because Hawkinson remains sidelined. They expect him back. I think it's the 3rd of November. He should be back. But when you start looking at target shares for a team like this, Jefferson is just far and away above everybody else. And then, you know, Aaron Jones is going to get a ton of work on the ground. He's also probably going to get a decent amount of work through the air. Look, he might be getting the same amount of targets as Addison and Naylor and any of these other guys. So I don't know. You know, I just, when I'm talking about some of, this is what I'm getting at, right? I'll stop speaking in circles. When I look at some of these guys, I'd rather just go with some of the cheap options, I think, where it's like, okay, Naylor has a 10% target share on the year, right? Johnny Mund has 11.7% target share. Sure, Naylor has a higher ceiling, but like Aaron Jones has a 15% target share. Addison in the 4 games he's played, 19%. Justin Jefferson, 33%. All of those other guys are sub 20. They're between 10 and 19%, except Addison and Naylor specifically. That price point, how do you justify that salary?
I mean, the way you justify it is that he's one of maybe the best fantasy wide receiver in the entire league. But it was what I said before. The reason
Naylor, not Jefferson. Naylor is not one of the best.
I thought you said Jefferson.
I'm saying when you look at the target shares of these guys, how can you justify a 10% target share on Jalen Naylor? It's the 5th highest on his own team, and he's $6,000.
Yeah, I mean, the price point on him is totally outrageous. Like, you'd rather just punt with like Johnny Mund or Josh Oliver.
If you were listening to me, that's exactly what I said. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, Josh Naylor though, because I was actually looking at my lineups. Here's what confused me about Josh Naylor. He's not in a single one of my lineups, so I couldn't even find him on the Sims page because he's not. You know, when you don't have any lineups with them in, they don't even show up on the exposures page. So I was looking through and I had none of him. And I was like, did I miss something here? And then it's like, oh no, he's 6K. So he's just not in anything.
I know. I think we both were calling him Jalen Naylor, Josh Naylor, like the baseball player. I think
I definitely was.
You definitely were. I think I did as well. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's tough. Big Fact said Jalen Naylor, Josh is in baseball. Yeah, I know. Listen, man, when you got these crossovers, it's tough. JJ Hawk, what's up, dude? He said Munn had 5 targets with 4 receptions, and it's seriously only 8 yards in all of that. I know, it's crazy. Feel like I might give Josh Oliver a chance this game, and he's cheap, maybe one of the better punts. Yeah, and there's some touchdown equity. They will target those guys in the red zone. I mean, look, it's ugly. There's nothing good about any of these guys. All I'm saying, and what Greg is saying too, is yes, you can come back when Naylor has like the 2 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown and be like, see, sure, that's fine. We're used to it. But the discounts on these guys when Naylor, yes, higher ceiling, but that price, I mean, you're giving up a lot to get to a guy. And I know he's scored a lot this year, Greg, like he's scored 3 times in 6 games, but I mean, how many total targets does he have on the season? He has 16 targets in 6 games. So what does that tell you? He's averaging fewer than 3 targets a game.
And don't forget, Addison was out at one point.
Correct.
So
Addison missed a handful.
That might not even be an accurate representation of his workload because I'd have to look at when the targets were, distributed game by game. But he's a weird person. 6K is also a price point like around there. We almost never see. That's the backup quarterback price point.
It's the dead zone. Yeah, it's for sure the dead zone. So, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think really I'd probably just look towards the kickers and defenses when you're getting down there. I don't love kicker and defense in this game. Don't get me wrong. I really don't. But kickers.
I don't hate the Vikings defense.
No? Tell me why.
Yeah. So for two reasons. The main one is actually just the game theory perspective, though, because I feel so not great about who to roster in the Rams pass catching game that I actually think the easiest route to building a lineup that ends up being the winning lineup is just nobody goes off of those pass catchers. And then you just have a game where like the Vikings defense has a pretty good fantasy game. And then you don't even have to worry about trying to figure out in those scenarios who the guy is from the Rams offense that goes off. So I like getting overweight to the Vikings defense projected for just under 20% ownership. And it's really just because I don't know who I want to roster from the Rams passing game. Like, yeah, I like Kyren Williams, obviously, and he's going to be involved in the passing game, but it's hard to have a ton of confidence in some of those guys we talked about before, like Tutu Atwell or Colby Parkinson or certainly Puka Nacua. And then even Cooper Kupp, like if Puka Nacua plays a decent role, and then also it's not like Cooper Kupp's been healthy recently, what is Cooper Kupp's role going to be? Is he totally because even if he plays 80% of his normal workload, that's going to be somebody who then at least like points per dollar, if you're projecting him, it's not somebody you'd want to have a ton of exposure to.
How about the kickers though? How about, because I'm getting decent exposure to them today. And in a high total game, remember that Atlanta Tampa game? Was it like 2 Thursdays ago? 2 or 3 Thursdays ago now. It was the Kirk Cousins 509 passing yard game. And that was the Mike Evans 2 touchdown game you and I joked about, where he wasn't even like if you didn't have him early on, you thought it was over. Now it ended up being over for me regardless, but it wasn't because of Mike Evans. It wasn't because I was underweight on Mike Evans. Younghoe Koo, and I think both kickers were in the optimal lineup that game, and and there were 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, they both scored 16 fantasy points as kickers. And I mean, kicker, it's another good kicker slate, and we've talked about this, ad nauseum this year. But you got a $5,400 kicker in Will Richard, and also a lot of these kickers. I don't know about you, I never care how good these kickers actually are. It's never something that like ever crossed my mind.
I don't know who half of them are.
I swear, like it feels like 80% of the time in these showdown slates, kickers landed in the winning lineups. The people get upset online because they didn't play the kickers, but they are never popular. And that's the case again today. So on a slate where there isn't much value, I'd feel better about playing Richard at $5,400 than Tutu Atwell or Colby Parkinson or Demarcus Robinson.
Look, I really just could not care less who the kicker themselves are. It's just simply, are they going to be in a position to kick field goals? And at that point, we'll see what happens. We'll take it from there. But I don't care at all. And like you said, it doesn't matter. So it's really just, are they going to be in field goal range? Are they going to have opportunities? If that's the case, let's do it. I'm getting a decent amount of them. The way I look at it right now, my exposures in the flex spot to both kickers is a combined 75%. I have 41 and 34%, Reichert and Cardi.
I don't hate it. They're my favorite. I mean, if we're considering that the value range, my favorite ones to roster, and you said before, it's kickers and defense. I prefer the kickers to the defenses, but the defenses are really, really low owned. So relative to ownership, I'm more overweight to the defenses, but kickers and defenses, I think, is the best way to save salary today.
Unless it's Johnny Munn.
I mean, it depends how cheap you want to go. If it's sub 3K, Johnny Munn is the one I like the most, but I have the kickers and defenses more than Johnny Munn overall.
Yeah, so do I, for sure. But I'm saying if you're, or really, if you're trying to get insane, let me see if I still have some, because this is someone that I was talking about with Matt. Okay, there he is. Hunter Long. I have 3% Hunter Long at the flex today. The hope there is that, I mean, you pretty much know that you're eating a 0, but maybe even 1 reception or something like that for Hunter Long in this game. But that's, I mean, that's as bad as it gets. You're playing for like 15%, 20% snaps. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. I mean, if you get one of those games where it's like, if there's no field goals kicked, let's say it's just all touchdowns scored, then you're getting like big game out of Stafford, big game out of Darnold, Aaron Jones, Kyren Williams, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp. Like all these guys were to have good games, then yeah, a punt would just make it into the lineup by default. But I'm not all that interested in any of those guys. Is that the one if you had to? Also, I kind of think it's funny. Like, what's the difference between somebody being $200 and 400, 400 and 600? I don't think I've ever built a lineup where that's actually come into play, where that salary difference was like massive or anything like that.
And if it did, like if that mattered, you probably have the chalkiest lineup of the slate. Like if you had 200 and there's a $200 player that's okay, that fits there, how many, I mean, how many people have that same lineup to max out the 50K? You know what I mean?
So is Hunter Long your guy if you had to pick somebody?
If I had to, yeah, there's truly no one else down there. That's why. Like if you go down there, go dumpster dive for a minute, you'll see what I mean. There actually isn't anyone down there.
Yeah, we've got Davis Allen, who has 2 targets for the entire season. We've got, I guess maybe CJ Ham, because he's occasionally gotten touches. He scored a touchdown this year, CJ Ham.
Yeah, maybe.
Was also the game that Aaron Jones was hurt, and it's the only time he's touched the football. I mean, all the options are terrible.
Maybe CJ Ham is the guy.
He's got a touchdown this year. That's something.
I know. Yeah, no, I get it. But again, there's really nobody down there. If you had to prioritize the guys at the top for you, how would you do it?
Yeah. So are we including the QBs in this?
Yes. Yes, okay. Definitely. Because the QBs actually look pretty good today.
So it's also going to be different flex versus captain. Because if we're looking at the multiplier spot, I don't love either of the QBs for the multiplier spot, but I like both of them a ton in the flex. Like I get Darnold and Stafford each in north of half of my lineups as flex options. So QBs far and away the top guys. The pricing is also favorable for a slate that doesn't have value, as we've discussed. If we're looking at the skill position players, Aaron Jones 1, Kyren Williams 2, Justin Jefferson 3, then Cooper Kupp 4 for me. But even with Cooper Kupp being 4th, I still have 30% of him.
So you're right around the field then, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about where I am. I have 33% Cooper Kupp at the flex, and I think I had like 10% at captain. My 2 highest owned captains right now, my highest exposed captains are Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson are my 2 highest exposed captains.
It's the same for me, but Jefferson's also really popular at the captain spot, and with his salary kind of being hard to get to, like I have a little bit over 10% of Justin Jefferson, so I come in pretty far underweight to the field. If I'm going to roster one of the chalky captains, Aaron Jones I definitely prefer to Justin Jefferson. It's a $3,300 salary difference that makes a really, really big difference here. So Aaron Jones, he's number 1 for me. Justin Jefferson 2, but coming in well underweight to the field to him. And then I guess I just have some like weird lineups with punts that are mixed in here, which I think doesn't have anything to do with, and by punts, I mean like a couple of Johnny Munn lineups, Colby Parkinson. I've got some lineups that have kickers in the captain spot. It's just because of how hard it is to save salary.
How many, and I'm looking at mine right now, but how much flex exposure do you have to these quarterbacks?
A lot. I mean, it's relative, but yeah, they're both in over half my lineups in the flex spot, but more of Sam Darnold than Matt Stafford, but both of them in over 50% of lineups. And Stafford's not crazy popular for a quarterback on a showdown slate. He's under 40% owned.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. I mean, understand he hasn't been great this year. He also hasn't had the tools to be great. The fact that he's been without Cooper Kupp and Puka for most of the season, and he hasn't had good pass blocking, which has actually gotten a little bit better though. If there were ever a game where he bounces back, this is definitely it. King Crown and Greg said, I get it isn't a great outlook for Kyren, but 4% captain seems insane. Is that what you said you're getting, or is Kyren 4% owned the captain right now?
He's not 4% owned a captain. Does he mean the MVP on FanDuel, maybe?
I don't know.
Let me look at, unless there was an ownership update since I ran the Sims like 20 minutes ago. We'll go to the ownership
Because
page.
I captain, I have. Yeah, like I have 10% Kyren at captain. Matter of fact, I am lockstep with the field on Kyren at captain.
Yeah, so we just had an ownership update. He is 11% owned in the captain on DraftKings, so that's the same as before. In the MVP on FanDuel, he's six. Yeah, it's just that's not what the number is. He's 16% owned in the MVP spot on FanDuel, and he's 11% on DraftKings.
Okay, so
maybe is it the lineups Jordan built on screen? He got
that's what I'm
4%
wondering.
exposure?
Yeah, maybe Jordan. Is that what it is? Never mind.
Click on the captain exposure there, just the captain tab. Yeah. All right. So that's what it is. Yeah, I have a little bit more than that, but if I'm playing one lineup, Kyren isn't the guy I'd go to in the captain spot.
Well, let's see. So if we have that there, it's still Jones, Jefferson, Kupp. So like we still have Jones, Jefferson, and Kupp as. And are you running this just on factory settings, Jordan, without making any changes to it? Yeah, run it again. We still got some time. Actually, that'd be helpful. I don't know if we update. It does. It actually looks like we updated at 749 ownership, 742. We updated projection. So yeah, that's helpful. Just to see what we get, because I mean, I'm still getting lineups and I'm still running these for different contests, Greg. To see what I'm getting here. And I am getting you know what's funny? A lot of times when you get a lot of a guy at captain, you'll also get a lot in the flex. With Cooper Kupp, I'm getting a pretty healthy amount at captain and then basically just with the field and flex.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, the one that I always think about when we've had these conversations about high variance players this year is the Achane situation when he was coming. I don't even remember what the injury was at this point, but he hadn't practiced. It was up in the air if he was going to play. He ends up being out there, and you just had no clue what his workload was going to be. And he ends up playing garbage time and got a ton of touches. And what you and I had talked about on the show is he was a great multiplier option in the MVP spot on FanDuel and then on DraftKings as well in the captain spot. But for the utility spot, we didn't really want to have anything to do with him just because it seemed like he was either going to have a really high ceiling game where he would just play a lot and get a lot of touches, or he was just going to be limited and barely be on the field. So it was a spot where like he was more of a strong captain option. I feel the same way about Cooper Kupp today.
Right. Yeah, it's you don't want to miss out on that if it happens to be one of those games. I've got no issues going there either at all.
I'll answer this really quick. We got a super chat from Marvin Baez. He wants to know Addison or Whittington for FanDuel last man in. Whittington's out today, so that's a really easy Jordan Addison answer.
Yeah, you didn't have to think about that one. He is in fact out. All right. Let's see here. I'm good.
Whittington to be contrarian now. He'll score the same amount of fantasy points as last week. I liked him last week, and it didn't go all that well. I get the same results playing him tonight.
Yeah, if you guys still want to jump in on basketball too, the next and you got a night slate tonight, but all the way through the 29th. So the next 5 days are $1. Link in the description down there. Promo codes tip off 24. You don't need it. It just auto loads for you when you use that link. But yeah, for next 5 days through the 29th of October is $1 single. And that's for the core. That's for the core, the $100 a month one, which means that like you're getting every slate, not just the main slate, but you know, any slate that's out there, we support it in our tools, in the single lineup sim, in the contest simulator, in the post contest sim, in the late swap tool, all of that stuff. So if you ever were actually looking to make better lineup, streamline your process and just make playing DFS basketball way easier, never been a better time to try. Plus, if you hate it, you're down $1. But I think you might look at this and go, oh, wow, this is what I've been missing to the process of DFS for basketball, which is, Greg, it can be very, very frustrating. And sometimes you'll take every opportunity you can get to leverage your own time. And this is the way to do it.
For sure. And by the way, Chris Albert, sorry, we did miss your super chat. He had asked, is the Rams offensive line still trash? And he wanted to know what we make of the Minnesota Vikings defense. Yeah, I think the Vikings defense is a good contrarian spot. Part of the reason, too, is that Matthew Stafford has been under siege for a lot of the season. Prior to last week, he had been sacked at least 3 times in every single game since week 1. And then also, you know how much Matthew Stafford, especially when the Rams are trailing, is allowed to throw the football. So with that being in mind, I think there's going to be a lot of point scoring opportunities for the Vikings. It's a contrarian spot I like.
I don't hate it at all. It's a tricky situation, right? Because he'd been under a lot of pressure. He'd been sacked a lot. Minnesota blitzes at the highest rate in the league, but he also didn't have Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. Also, they benched one of their offensive linemen, brought in another guy who I read it this morning, like didn't give up a pressure in 27 snaps. So maybe that makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. I truly couldn't tell you. But yeah, no, they're still a below average offensive line. It's not even the pressure that gets you for Minnesota. It's the blitz, like I'm saying it's not their ability just to blow through the line with raw force. So yeah, interesting spot. If I had to go on, it's Minnesota defense. You're definitely right. The Rams defense has a little bit less upside there, unless you have the Darnold pick 6 or something, or a scoop and score, but that's just random a lot of times. Like you can't really predict for the fumble touchdown.
Yeah, like the things like the punt return touchdowns, the kick return touchdowns, this is all random nonsense. But between the two defenses, I do think there's more opportunity for the Viking side.
Agreed. Anything else? A few more minutes to go.
Yeah, let me check, just make sure there wasn't any questions that came into Discord here. We did have one here from Einstein. He wants to know, any interest in Stafford as a captain option today? No, I prefer him as a flex option. The problem with Matthew Stafford, and this is like a general sort of, I wouldn't say a rule, because there's never like, don't play this guy. You have to play this guy in this kind of scenario. For the most part, though, I don't love non-rushing quarterbacks in the MVP spot or MVP spot for FanDuel, or in the captain spot for DraftKings, because for them to have a massive game, they have to throw for a lot of yards. And in that scenario, there's usually a wide receiver that's going to outscore the quarterback. Because if a QB has 300 passing yards, he has to really spread the ball out for none of the wide receivers to have big games. And if a quarterback throws for, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, it's not as big of a game as a number 1 wide receiver having, say, like 8 catches for over 100 yards with a touchdown. So if a quarterback has a big game and they're a non-rushing quarterback, it stands to reason one of the wide receivers are going to outscore them. And there's really no rushing upside for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford this year, do you know his season high for rushing yards, Lofty?
2?
It is 0.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Him, Kirk Cousins, a bunch of those guys, just nothing.
Yeah,
he doesn't even,
his only rushing attempts are kneel downs.
Right.
So there's 0 rushing upside at all for Matthew Stafford. That makes him somebody I don't want to consider in the multiplier spot. So Einsteinium, no, I'd rather look elsewhere in that multiplier spot. Especially
now that you've got Kupp back. It's like if Stafford has that big game and he's not rushing, what is the likelihood that it's Cooper Kupp just having an even bigger game in a spot like that? So yeah, I'm with you. I would rather not. Sam Darnold has, I think his rushing prop was like 13.5. I would prefer Darnold at captain over Stafford, but again, Jefferson looks good there. So many of these other guys. Aaron Jones looks great there. Like, let me see right now. Do I have?
Puka Nacua announced as a starter, by the way. We just got that news,
okay, yeah. I mean, I figured he'd start, but let's see. I have
step on the field. By the way, getting back to what we talked about before, now that he's confirmed as the starter, the 5K on FanDuel, once again, don't want to like smash Puka Nacua, but he's clearly a good value option over on FanDuel. Don't want to pay up for him on DraftKings. And then we did get a follow-up super chat from Marvin Baez. He wanted to know, he clarified his answer. It is not a 1v1 with Jordan Whittington, who is not playing. It's a Richard or Addison as last minute. I'd rather play Addison. I know we like the kickers. We talked about being overweight to the field to him, but if it's Addison versus a kicker, then the answer is Addison.
I would also rather play Addison here. And I also have more Addison at captain than, is it Reichert? Richard? Reichert?
Nobody knows for sure.
I,
Nobody knows.
I'm looking
We'll have to get a German in here to translate.
It's got to be Reichert, right? Although I don't actually. Yeah, I've always said like it's Reichert. Yeah. So I've always prided myself on pronouncing names correctly. Like even before we do shows, if it's certain guys, specifically for like basketball, certain, some of those guys, I don't know the pronunciation. So I'll look it up and I'll make sure I have it right. Certain football players that might have come out of nowhere. With kickers, Greg, I admittedly don't even bother. Like it's just, I get it wrong. It is what it is.
They also don't show up on main slates. Like you're going to have to also most kickers, because they're very uninteresting people. Their last names are like Jones or Thompson or stuff like that. You don't get that many, other than like the European ones who used to play soccer or whatever. Really quick, Malcolm revamp, Nacua or Kupp for the flex on DK. I prefer Cooper Kupp, certainly to Puka Nacua.
So do I. Unless you're Sebastian Janikowski, he was just a man.
Yeah. He's somebody who he reminds me of like a guy from a movie. Like he would be smoking cigarettes on the sideline in between kicks.
Well, so to me, he always reminded me of Nigel Gruff from The Replacements. Remember? With Shane Falco. You have to know what I'm talking. You know that movie, right?
Whenever there's a team that's like massively injured in the NFL, it never gets any engagements. Nobody's interested in it. Nobody likes it. Nobody gets the reference. But whenever a team is like a mass amount of injuries, I always put out a picture of Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco and go, this is going to be this team's quarterback next week. I've probably done it a dozen times on Twitter. Never gets anything, and I'm not going to stop doing it either.
You shouldn't, because that movie's so good.
I haven't watched that movie in a while, but yeah.
I used to watch it with my dad when I was a kid. So like it's one of those that's kind of close to me. But like Gene Hackman, John Favreau, he was amazing in that. He was the wild man. Give me the ball. I got you the ball. Dude, what a good movie. I'm going to have to go watch that soon.
You should watch it with your daughter.
Yeah. Well, right when we're done watching season 3 of Oz, how
far are you guys into Sopranos?
Yeah, dude, Oz is way worse than that. I mean, there's just straight like prison rape. So no, but we won't be watching that. I did get her watching like some good stuff, the old school Little Rascals, some of those older movies like Sandlot will be soon. I'm talking about those great 90s movies. We'll be there. We're not there yet.
Princess Bride is good too.
What's that?
Princess Bride.
My wife loves that movie. I've never seen it.
Missing out.
Yeah.
I think you're written it off just because it is princess in the name.
It did stand out, but no, I've heard it's okay. I'll check it out. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Yeah, EMAG. I've seen monkey shit fights at the zoo that were more organized than this. Yeah, and like remember the cheerleader tryouts and The Replacements?
I don't remember that. I probably haven't seen the movie for like 12 years.
Okay, go watch. They got like one freak and then the big fat chicks blobbing around in there. I don't think you could do that today. But great movie. Everybody go watch The Replacements. And we will see you back here tomorrow, Greg and I, on the Sim Strategy Show. Yo, that's going to be a good one because we have 13 games, some really weird value spots in the mid-range, some underpriced options, and also some key injuries that we're waiting on. Listen, I think if we have practice data like from today that we can use and yesterday, we might be able to just kind of massage those projections and go the direction that we want with some of the value. So that'll be a fun slate to see which way things break tomorrow morning.
Yeah, come check it out tomorrow. Lots of content on the channel. We've got Sim Strategy Show in the morning. Obviously, Josh doing the NBA deep dive. I'm going to be doing my UFC breakdown. We got a great pay-per-view this weekend. Max Holloway against Ilya Taporia. And then there's going to be NBA deep dive, NBA live before lock. And then the post-lock show and maybe a post-lock show that's still up in the air. There's a little bit of uncertainty from our call earlier.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's I'd say it's a garbled yes. So who knows? Anyway, Appreciate you guys. You're the best. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Josh first, strategy show, then us, and then a bunch of basketball at night. Shout out to Jordan for producing, and we'll see you guys back here soon. Peace.